All right, so I think this is a fun one, which then made me think I should make a video for it because I'm sure whatever I think is fun, y'all don't think of as much fun. So we've got a hill with a cross section. So cross section is like if you cut into something, what shape would you see? So if we cut straight down into our hill, this is the shape we'd see, and modeled by a cosine function. So here's my min, which tells me straight away I'm thinking of a negative value here. Here's my max, and then back down to the min. And we're going between 0 and 2. So I see my 0 and 2. There's my midpoint. So right now I'm thinking, oh, that's telling me what this k value is because I can see that the distance between minimums is 2. So that's my period. So we notice here k is the first thing it tells us to find. So my k is going to be 2 pi divided by k is going to equal 2. So that tells me that k must be pi. All right. And now we've got a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 4. So that's telling me that my amplitude is 2. So I know that my amplitude can be thought of. So here my amplitude letter is actually B. And that's going to be max minus min divided by 2 because it's half the distance between the maximum and the minimum. So that's 2. My middle line here is they're using the variable a. Normally we think of it as d. Well, that's the midpoint between the max and the min. So the midpoint formula is going to be min plus max divided by 2. So in this case, they're both 2, but this is my systematic way of thinking of it. Again, we're using a because that's the variable they gave us. So there we go. How far horizontally from O? So we've got, let's figure out what O is. So h of x measures the height of the hill relative to the horizontal distance x meters from O. So O is going to be my origin. Here, my x is horizontal distance. H is vertical distance. So how far horizontally when he first reaches a height of 1 meter? Well, my height of 1 meter is here. So this is the value I'm looking for. That's the first x I want. So I'm going to solve that equation. So I'm going to say that plugging everything in, 2 plus 2 cosine of pi x is going to be equal to 1. So solving this equation, I get negative 1 divided by 2 cosine of pi x is negative a half. I feel like this is the ratio we keep giving you. So hopefully you know now that that means that my pi x would need to be 2 pi over 3 because that's the first time that cosine is negative a half. So then my x value is going to be 2 over 3 meters. So 2/3 of a meter. How much further horizontally will he have traveled when he reaches the same height? So now I want this value. Well, I can use my symmetry to help me. I know this distance is 2/3 of a meter. So this distance must also be 2/3 of a meter. And so solving that, then I can say that the second time is going to be 2 minus 2/3, which is going to be equal to 1 1/3 meters. Now, this doesn't look like it makes so much sense, so I'm going to go back and think about whether what I've done is true or not. So coming back to say, okay, 2 pi over k needs to be equal to 2 because that was my whole period. That's true. So k is going to be equal to pi. Yes, all right. So now I know that solving this equation, I want it to be equal to 1 meter. Subtract 2 is negative 1. Divide by 2 is negative a half. Cosine is negative a half at 2 pi over 3. That's true. Divide by pi, and my pi's are going to cancel out. So I get 2/3 of a meter. So maybe this is just scaled funny, is something that's happening. But otherwise, my math is correct. I could come back and check it with my calculator too if I wanted to, but I think I'm going to make a quick Desmos graph. So let's go into Desmos. And let's first see that my graph makes sense. So we said that the graph was 2 plus 2 cosine of pi. I'm going to use x. And we were looking for 0 less than x less than 2. Doesn't make sense. All right, so let's go back and think about what I did wrong. And I know straight away what I did wrong looking at this. My a value should have been negative. So I should have had a negative 2 there. And now that looks correct. So let's come back and fix that. So I need to have my amplitude is still 2, but I started at the minimum. So here's my measure of amplitude, but I need b to be negative. So b is less than 0. Therefore, b is negative 2. So I'm going to change this to say amplitude. So my amplitude is 2, but my value here needed to be negative to start at the minimum. So now I need to come back and make this negative 2, which would then make this positive a half. I know that the first time cosine is positive half is going to be pi over 3, which makes way more sense. And so now 2 minus 1/3 is going to be 1 2/3, which also makes more sense. So I would like to pretend that I did that error on purpose so that we could think about problem solving, but yeah, it just sort of happened that I messed up, which is okay, because then we can reflect and fix our mistakes. And I see one more mistake to be fixed down here, that first distance should have been 1/3 of a meter. All right, hope that was helpful. Put your questions in the question document. Go ahead and try your problem set, and come see us in office hours.